Hello. Hello. Fix this. It's fixed. And we're live. Let's see who joins. I'm a little. Hello. How's the mic? Sounds good. Okay. Happy Wednesday. Where's the best sound? Is that the best? Is this the best? This. Checking. Checking 1, 2. Just by myself. Making myself laugh. Okay. No, you stay. Okay. Hi, how are you? I'm just getting situated. Oh, stay, microphone. Don't you move. Hello? Okay, that's a little bit better. That's a lot better. Hey, how are you all? It's Wednesday, right? It is Wednesday. Good for me. Happy Wednesday. I'll let a few people. I have more to be thankful than to complain about. Good attitude. Hello, happy Wednesday. Hi, thank you for joining. Is that my volume? Let's turn. Oh, no. Down. Hello. Hi, Clown Man. Walkie, Tanner. How are you guys? Hello. Okay. So yesterday, we'll talk about the elections yesterday and then anything else you guys want to talk about. So a lot of Republicans were very, hi Kelly, how are you? Okay, doing well, good. Hi, all right. So there were a lot of local elections yesterday all around the US of A, and it wasn't the best turnout. I'm doing wonderful, actually. The weather around here has been really nice. I've been outside a lot, and I love that. I heard it's actually one of the warmer falls. So I'm gonna go to the park, I think, and do a hike later. Okay, there were a lot of local elections yesterday, and a lot of people were really disappointed in them. And I get it. Republicans didn't do as well as they probably should have. And unfortunately, it looks like one of the major issues was abortion. There is a guy that I follow. Everyone's seeing Sarah. Okay, there's a guy that I follow who actually laid out really well, I think, what happened. Um, Republicans' loss in Kentucky tonight was a major blow in a state we have to win in 2024. So it's a little bit scary because a lot of people are thinking this might be a predecessor going into 2024. I don't necessarily think so. These were local elections, so that's a lot different. And where I think a lot of Republicans made a mistake is a lot of people that were running are toying with the idea of a federal abortion ban, and that is just not where the country is at right now. And just so you guys know my personal belief, I am a reformed pro-choicer. So I am pro-life. Uh, but I also know that politics is about winning. I also know that you have to go with where the country is and you also have to win. Um, 80% of the country agrees in first term first term abortion. So that's what, 3 months? 80% of Americans are okay with that. It's far fewer Americans that are okay with a total abortion ban. Do I think maybe we could get there one day? Sure, but we're looking at the long haul. It's a marathon. It's not winning every little sprint, or it's about winning the war, not every little battle. And last night was very clear of that. So let's look at Kentucky for just a minute, and then we'll have fun. Haha. Republicans' loss in Kentucky tonight is a major blow in a state we have to win in 2024, but I think we can learn a lot from this election, particularly our messaging on abortion. That's what it was. Here's how we can make our pro life stance a winning issue in 2024. Okay, let's see what he has to say. This is interesting. Going into 2024, all Republican candidates must be on the same page regarding pro-life messaging because it is easily the number one issue in every single race in every single state. Tonight, one of the biggest deciding factors in Kentucky for swing voters and moderates was Cameron's radical abortion stance. He simply didn't know how to talk about the topic or respond when his position was called radical because it actually wasn't. It was humane. The nail in the Daniel Cameron AG coffin was this ad with a young teenager who was the victim of incest. This ad was everywhere. It's a direct emotional grab to voters. Moderate GOP voters likely voted for the other candidate simply because of this. So here's the ad. It's just 30 seconds.
After years of sexual abuse, I was 12. Anyone who believes there should be no exceptions for rape and incest could never understand what it's like to stand in my shoes. This is to you, Daniel Cameron. To tell a 12-year-old girl she must have the baby of her stepfather who raped her is unthinkable. I'm speaking out because women and girls need to have options. Daniel Cameron would give us none.
So that, oops, sorry, I played it again. That was a major blow, a 30-second ad, major blow. And the thing is, actually, I'll get back to that in a second. I don't even know an election happened yesterday until it was too late. Yeah, that was another problem too. A lot of people didn't know there was an election. And obviously it's a kind of an off year election, so you're going to have a lower turnout than normal, but so many people had no idea there was even an election. Okay, so after that, he wrote, that 30-second ad single handedly lost the election tonight. Cameron dodged responding to it in the final weeks of the campaign. That was a big mistake. You want to know something interesting? Donald Trump is probably one of the most pro life presidents we've ever had, but have you ever really heard him talk about it that much? He didn't make it a big deal in his campaign. Cameron dodged responding to it in the final weeks of the campaign. That was a big mistake. I understand he was walking on a major political landmine, but he should have simply said the following. Okay, now these are his suggestions. All GOP candidates should, let's see if we agree with this or not, never use the term ban. Instead, support common sense limitations. Genius. Emphasize that they are pro life because they are pro family and pro woman. Support a minimum 15-week national consensus limits when babies feel pain. Support exceptions. Going forward, Republicans should be going on offense with our pro life stance, not defense. We cannot win on this issue, and it will be the biggest issue in 2024 if we cower in the corner. Go after liberal candidates who support abortion after 15 weeks after the baby feels pain. That's inhumane. Remind voters of that. At the end of the day, the most important thing candidates should be doing is being proud of their pro life stance and explaining to voters why they are pro life. Candidates who duck or dodge it in debates or on the trail almost always lose. We can't afford that next November. 364 days until Election Day 2024. Let's get to work. I really agree with that. And I've seen it, especially in the older men. They get really uncomfortable and they really toe the line and try to dodge those questions instead of just taking them head on. It's almost like they don't know how to go about it and they have to, because honestly, this is just the truth. Even among GOP voters, you still have a large group among GOP voters that are pro-life with common sense limitations. But then when you start throwing around the word ban, that freaks people out. Walkie said Sheelan is going to go to crap if Sheila Jackson. Oh, I forgot about her. Wait, who is Sheila Jackson Lee? Max said, I don't really care about abortion because I'm a male. To me, it was just never a big issue. I mean, I don't see myself having one. So to me, it just wasn't. But I'll be honest with you, I was wrong when Roe versus Wade was originally overturned, and I think that's what it is too. I think a lot of GOP candidates are having a hard time with this new post Roe versus Wade world. But I was wrong. I didn't think it was going to be that big an issue, but it definitely was. And said it to you guys before, I was a little bit upset at some Republican political officials who started jumping the gun as soon as Roe versus Wade was overturned. They should have just let it simmer. Like, let it simmer, let people calm down, let them chill out, and then move forth with whatever legislation you want to move forth with, but do it with common sense and do it with understanding where we are as a country right now. Because on this issue, whether you like it or not, and it's so funny because I'll post about this and I'll still get comments on my post, it's murder. But I agree with you. I'm on your side, but losing on principle, you're still losing. And if we lose, what's going to happen if we lose the next elections? Are we all just going to live in the Bolshevik revolution? Because there you're not going to have any opinion. You're not going to have anything. So you have to play with the end game, with the long end game in mind. And so many people, they just want to go all in and win every single battle. You can't do that. It doesn't work. I'm against abortions, but I do support the morning after pill. And the Supreme Court would have overturned it in 2021 instead of 6 months before the election. I know, and the timing on that couldn't have been worse because it was the same with the midterm elections. That was a really big deal in the midterm elections, and they did it so soon before. Sarah, did your religious convictions change your mind? Actually, no. And to be honest, I'm like a baby in learning my Bible and sort of like um making my relationship with God or fixing it because I've always had one, but I've never had a really big understanding of the Bible. But no, I changed my mind actually before want to know who changed my mind on it? Lila Rose and Christina Hawk. More so Lila Rose because she just came first. Lila Rose, I don't know if you've ever heard her talk. She's just so clear and concise and calm and fact based. And she really just changed my mind on the whole thing. Because if you ever really look at a debate between a pro lifer and a pro choicer, every single time, unless the pro lifer just isn't very educated, but if it's a very educated person in pro-life, the pro-life person wins almost every time. Once you really get to the bottom and really say what it actually is, they just do. And I agree. I think there should be exceptions, common sense limitations. The morning after pill, that's another conversation to have. I don't even know where I stand on that right now. I just haven't given that part much thought since I've changed my mind. But those things I think are good things to bring up in conversation and talk about. But yeah, it was just listening to Lila Rose. And you know what's funny? Way back when I was a liberal, I knew someone that dated her. And I remember thinking that I thought at the time, Lila's crazy. She's a crazy person. Why does she care so much about abortion? I just didn't. I was so liberal. I just couldn't understand. I thought she was the bad guy. And I'm kind of glad I used to be that liberal and I thought that about her because that gives me insight into where liberals' minds are at now. I thought she was the bad guy. Oh, Christina Hawkins. I'm sorry, not Christina Hawk. Okay, so Christina Hawkins, she's a very, very big, very big influential person, goes around to college campuses, has a big platform. I'm not sure if you guys know who she is. I discovered her earlier this year, but she very big pro-life person. This is what she said about the whole thing. So I just want to read it to you. She tweeted this out last night at 11 p.m. Republicans must end this self fulfilling prophecy cycle. They say abortion is a loser, refuse to engage, and get Democrats to defend their abortion in all 9 months views, then see an election loss. Ending late term abortions has majority support in every poll. Yes. So it will win in elections if there are courageous Republicans willing to talk about it. But when they don't talk, grassroots and the big donors listen to the silence. Their giving drops out. In Ohio, the pro life movement was outspent 3 to 1 with data we can find, and it's likely a lot higher. So that's another really interesting thing of what happened in Ohio yesterday. So Ohio was for Trump in 2020 by a pretty significant margin. I think it was like 53% Trump, like 47, 46, 45% Biden, something like that. So that is a red state. And they voted to the vote was essentially to make sure that voting would always or that abortion would always be legal in Ohio. So voters voted for that, even though it's a red state. That should tell you everything you need to know. And I agree with her. 80% of people, whether pro life or pro choice, believe in banning late term abortions. We are all on the same page. So that is a great place for conservatives to start, or Republicans for that matter. And that's what's so frustrating about politics. It really is because most of us, when you really get down to it, when we drop all the rhetoric and all the partisanship and all the the having to stick to my narrative and my side, once you drop all of that, most of us agree on most things. That's what's so frustrating. It's just all about the messaging, the hyper partisanship, the putting us against them and making you think that the other side is so extreme. There are extreme people, but most people are somewhere in the middle. It's just the loud ones get all the attention. That little minority of extremely loud and extreme people get all the attention. Wow. Okay. Glenn Allen said in Wilmington, North Carolina, all three Republican city council candidates lost. So now it flipped to Democrat. That is interesting. Only a 20% turnout. That's a really good point, Max. Okay, so Max says Republicans need to focus on the economy. I think women are naturally siding with abortion because the economy is bad and freaking them out. That's a really, really, really good point. A really good point. And if you look at all of the national polls for the presidential election, um, I think, Kelly, were you referring to what Max said? That's really sad to hear. Or Glenn. Both are very sad to hear. It is very sad to hear both. But if you look at all the pollings for the presidential election coming up in 2024, the economy and inflation are the top two issues that voters are concerned about. I actually just read today, this was in MoneyWise magazine, that a third of people making over $150,000 per year are living paycheck to paycheck and are having to supplement putting things on their credit card until their next paycheck comes. That is really bad. And even I'll go through, oh, what Glenn said, I'll go through social media and I'll see post after post of adult, like people that are well established adults, people that have, what I mean by that is people that have been in the workforce for a good minute, that should have, things built up in their field. And it'll be a couple and they're saying, we live together, we don't have any kids, we make well over $100,000 a year, and we're struggling. So I hear that a lot. That is a big issue with a lot of people, and I agree. They need to focus on the economy, and if they're going to touch any abortion issue, which I don't almost don't think they should, or almost it might be so bad that they might have to. They're going to get asked that question because it's a really big deal for Democrat voters. And the Democratic Party, they don't have a lot to go on right now. So they are going to go after and push that abortion issue like crazy. And they want Republicans to get uncomfortable. They want Republicans to trip over their words. They want Republicans to look awkward and uncomfortable when talking about this issue. So they are going to ask about it and they are going to push it, and they need to have a really good offense. And I think what Christina said, I think what the other thread said about that issue, I think that's a really good place to start. Magnitude 5.3 earthquake rocks West Texas. I saw that. There was a really big earthquake somewhere else too. Where was the other one? There was like a 7.1 somewhere. It wasn't in the US though. Yeah, a rare magnitude 5.2 earthquake shakes parts of Texas. Just struck near Mentone, Texas, moments ago, with multiple people reporting being awakened by the shaking. As well as Roswell, New Mexico. There have been reports of minor injuries due to falling objects and some minor medical issues. Well, hopefully they're all okay. More birthing pains. It was 4:30 a.m. I slept through my first earthquake. I remember the first one when I was in California, the first one I really felt, I slept through my first one. The second one, I was in the back of an Uber and we were going down it was Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. We were going down Sunset Boulevard and we were getting ready to turn, so we were in the middle lane, the middle turning lane. There were two lanes on each side. So it was a 4-lane road, two lanes on each side. We were in the middle lane getting ready to turn at the turn when all of a sudden the car started like rocking back and forth a little bit. And it was kind of an older car, so your mind doesn't really pick up on it. A lot of times I've noticed that in an earthquake, by the time you realize it's an earthquake, it's over because your mind just isn't going there. So anyway, I'm thinking the car's rocking back and forth, and I'm thinking, oh, she just has an old car. It's just doing something weird. And then I noticed she was kind of freaking out and she was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, what do you mean? And I looked around and all of the signs, I remember we were right by a Chipotle and the Chipotle sign was just swinging back and forth. And we were swinging back and forth and I didn't know what to do. I was like, just keep driving very slowly in the middle. I didn't know if things were going to fall. But anyway, it was over in just a second. No, I wasn't just in one earthquake. My second one, it was during the pandemic, and I was just in my apartment, and it came out of nowhere. Well, no, it didn't. I could hear like a rumble. It was really weird, like a really faint, far away rumble, almost like a plane or a train in the distance. And then all of a sudden, everything started shaking really quickly, and then it stopped. And that was that. It was like 11 p.m. at night. That was that. And then another time, I was sleeping and I woke up. There's different kinds of earthquakes, and this one, it was probably like 6 or 7 in the morning, and I was sort of like half asleep, half awake, and I almost felt like we dropped. It was so weird. It was just like 2 abrupt, like, shakes, but they felt like drops more than shakes. That one really freaked me out. Some of them don't freak me out so much. That one freaked me out. But what's scary about an earthquake, especially in a place like California, is sometimes the initial earthquake might not be the worst thing that happens, but the aftermath, like not having water or electricity, trying to get everything back on, all that stuff. And in California, you sleep with shoes under your bed just in case there is a earthquake that happens in the middle of the night and you need to wake up and put your shoes on so you don't step on glass or anything broken. But you sleep with shoes under your bed. A lot of California people know that. A rare earthquake stronger than magnitude 5.0 on the Richter scale struck remote area of West Texas. One guy said, well, that was a heck of a way to wake up. According to the USGS, a 5.2 magnitude earthquake just struck West Texas. and could be felt from Alpine to Odessa. The epicenter is near Mentone, where some oil field injection wells have been known to cause similar quakes. Did you know that Taylor Swift caused an earthquake? So there's a phenomenon when you have a lot of people in a stadium together and they're all jumping up and down and screaming, they can actually cause like really tiny, small earthquakes in the vicinity of where they are. And Taylor Swift's concert has started at least one or two of those. Fun fact, or not so fun. Okay, this is what's so confusing to me because so many people are waking up, yet Republicans lost so badly. And I think you're right, though. I think a lot of that had to do with turnout, messaging. So this is really fascinating. I have been watching these city council meetings in Chicago, and the people of Chicago are getting more and more upset. Do you remember how Tucker Carlson used to always talk about the great replacement theory? Well, let's go over to Chicago. I'm going to let you hear what this guy is saying. So essentially what's happening in Chicago is they have all these migrants. They're not calling on Biden to close the border, but what they're doing is they just keep making all of these shelters and keep using taxpayer money and keep putting these shelter and where they're putting these shelters is the south side of Chicago. That's where they're putting all these shelters in the south side, predominantly black and Asian neighborhoods. So this guy was really upset and spoke to city council. I want you to hear what he has to say. It's really interesting.
To poverty by you all. You start. NPR reported from August of last year to December of this year, they will spend $252 million on the migrants. $252 million. 17,000 migrants come into this city. And just in Chicago. If we just break that in half and they become families, you got 8,500 families. Hispanics have 3.5 children. I'm submitting to you in one generation, just one generation, the black vote will be null. They will have an additional 24,000 people on the voting rolls, along with the Hispanic population already here. They're playing chess, and you all are playing checkers. You are damning our youth, our next generation, to poverty by you all doing these political speeches. One generation, our youth, our vote will be null in all these 6 sanctuary cities. And what are you going to do about that?
That was a resident of Chicago. That was a resident of Southside Chicago speaking, and he was essentially saying, "You're bringing all of them over here. They're going to have children in one generation. If they stay, we're going to be outnumbered. Our vote is going to be canceled out. Our vote is going to be null." That's what he was saying. And this is how a lot of the Black community is feeling in Southside Chicago that they are being displaced by migrants. And it's wild because Tucker Carlson used to talk about the great replacement theory and he was called a racist and all this stuff. And here you have Black Americans on the South Side of Chicago who probably never have watched Tucker Carlson ever. Maybe a few of them had. I don't know. I'm not going to assume. But now they're saying it. You are canceling us out. You are replacing us. We're not going to matter. We're not going to have a voice. We're not going to have a say. We're not going to have a vote by next generation because we are going to be outnumbered. Our needs aren't going to matter. And he was absolutely right. So I'm going to play you a little bit of him in a second again because there was a back and forth. So the political official that was talking to him, also what's really frustrating is these political officials, they're essentially just trying to lecture and gaslight how we need to help people and these people they're just looking for a better life and all of this stuff. Meanwhile, the residents are so upset. It's frustrating to watch. So the political official, he comes back and says, well, the good news that he goes and says, we're working on housing and this and that for the Black community and this and that. This is how we're helping. And then he also says that, which what he said is true. And I was actually surprised that he said this out loud. I was surprised that he even knew this. But the local political official in Chicago said, well, most of them actually aren't going to have legitimate asylum cases. So most of them aren't going to be citizens. But the guy, he clapped back and he said, "Oh, wait a second. Some of these people have years until they get a court date to decide if their asylum cases are legitimate or not. They'll have babies between them, and if they have a baby in the United States of America, that baby is automatically a citizen. It doesn't matter how they got here. That baby is automatically a citizen." And that's true. That's our birthright thing. And this is so outdated, and shame on Congress and Washington, D.C. for never fixing this. So the whole birthright citizenship, it came from back in the days of slavery, and that was to protect children that were the descendants of slaves. So if a slave had a child, that was meant to protect that child and give that child citizenship. We don't need that anymore. We don't have that anymore, but it's still a thing, and it has caused a lot of problems. There's something called, it's like birthing tourism, where they will literally sell a trip to the United States to a pregnant woman so she can have her baby in the USA. Look this up. It's actually a thing. So she can have her baby in the USA, because just having it here, that baby is automatically a citizen. So people all over the world have already been taking advantage of this for years and years and years and years. And now you have millions of people here. Some might get pregnant and have babies. So even if their case is not adjudicated yet, even if they haven't gone to court yet, even if the court does find when they do go that they don't have a legitimate asylum case, if they have a baby in the US, that baby is now a citizen. Okay, so here's the last part.
Have not addressed the issue. Okay, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. You danced all around. Okay. You did not give any specific solutions on what you want to do. Anybody can stop. Okay, no, thank you. My brother, let me ask you. Can you help me with the solution you'd like to see me do? Sure. I can help with the solution. You want your answer. Send them back. That's the only solution. That's it. Other than that, they will surpass us. And it's math. It's simple math. They will overtake us in numbers at the rate that they have kids. They cannot be U.S. citizens. You are dooming our next generation to subservitude. I'm telling you this. Okay. It's just simple math.
He's right. He's right, though. He's absolutely right. So that's Chicago. That's why it's so surprising to me to see this epic loss, because I watch these local city council meetings all the time. People are so fed up with Democrats. Then again, those aren't really the districts that were voting today. So oh, and here, ooh, you know what? You know what's crazy? I was actually watching. Orca says the math is that it's Trump's fault. Of course it is. Well, you know, it's funny. Actually, yeah, you know what? It was that same meeting. I'm so glad you brought up Trump. It was that same exact meeting that I was watching. The man who was speaking before people gave public comment, before that guy gave public comment, this local politician was speaking, trying to educate people on what was happening, right? Which is extremely insulting, because we know what's happening. When he was talking about the broken immigration system, he kept saying that people were coming from Venezuela. They're getting a large influx of Venezuelans. And he kept saying that people are coming from Venezuela because of U.S. sanctions and tariffs that Trump put on them. Which that might be somewhat true, but that's not true for them. They're coming because they can. I thought so in that same day, bring up Trump and try to put some of the blame on him. But you see the people, they're not buying it. Most of the people in Chicago are absolutely not buying it. They know what's happening, and they also see what's happening. I was watching Peter Santinello's YouTube channel. He has a great YouTube channel. He really just goes to random places and films and just tells stories that other people don't tell. But he was recently in Chicago, and he did a little bit of kind of a ride along with a recently retired retired Chicago police officer, and they did go to some of the police stations where the migrants are staying, and it's just causing all kinds of problems. You have these fields with tents in them with homeless veterans, and then you have migrants sleeping in police stations, just getting a free for all in the police stations. You also have like prostitution that's happening, and that didn't used to happen before in areas, all kinds of issues that it's causing. I was watching a hearing today with Secretary Mayorkas. It might still be going on, although I think it concluded. Um, the hearing with Secretary Mayorkas, I was listening to a Democrat. So the hearing was on Homeland Security, so it wasn't solely focused on the border, but I heard several Democrats actually speaking, and this is an issue that I haven't been very privy to, but I just found it so ironic and so out of touch that during this meeting where they're talking about the border and border numbers, they also brought up childcare for American citizens and how a lot of their constituents are having a really hard time finding childcare, or they're not being able to afford childcare. And I just laughed when I was hearing this, obviously not because I don't have compassion to these people, but almost at the politicians. I'm like, here you are talking about how American citizens are struggling finding childcare, and you're defending this open border policy. Do you realize that when people come over our oops, when people come over our border with children, they get free taxpayer funded childcare. So you can give free taxpayer funded childcare to migrants, but you can't figure out how to do that for American citizens. Look how quickly they mobilized to get free health care for people that are here illegally, and American citizens are struggling to pay. Does that make any logical sense whatsoever? The same, the same with the guy that was leading this local meeting. He made a point that, well, most of them won't eventually become citizens because most of them are not going to have legitimate asylum claims. Okay, clown show circus coordinator. Um, so now you're basically admitting that taxpayers are being forced to fund the bill for people that don't even have legitimate asylum claims that are frauding our system. Money that could be used for their communities, for their homeless, for their children. It's just unbelievable. And in Chicago, you still have people that are waiting on Section 8 housing. Crazy. Oh, and now here's a story out of Chicago. I didn't even mean to talk about Chicago, but why not? Um, oh. Mayor Brandon Johnson's tax increase for homeless service will head to voters. So you have Mayor Johnson now who's asking to increase taxes for homeless people. Well, gee, if you didn't have the migrant situation, you could have just used the funds that you're using for them to fix your homeless situation. You wouldn't have to raise taxes in the midst of inflation, in the midst of high gas prices, in the midst of a horrible economy. This is actually okay. It's actually a property sale transfer tax decrease for many, an increase for those who can afford it. It's still a tax increase. In my opinion, if you have funds to give millions and millions to migrants, there should be no tax increases on people. There should be none. Here's another Chicagoan.
Gentlemen, we're up to 40 million a month. We're spending a lot of money every single day. I think we're up to 40 million a month now, ladies and gentlemen. We're up to 40.
Okay, so there's also a big issue between aldermen. So this is an alderman out of the 9th Ward of Chicago.
We're spending a lot of money every single day. I think we're up to 40 million a month now, ladies and gentlemen. We're up to 40 million a month. And to shut people out from having a voice is not what the city foundation was built on. This is what this question is causing right now. If we're city council members that are elected to represent our residents and asking them a simple question because they are dying to be heard, and we're denying that. When we voted council, we are not representatives of our neighborhoods and our communities anymore. We're representatives of just this building. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing here. This is supposed to be answered.
$40 million. So that was a meeting this week that actually had to get canceled early. It got pretty heated. So essentially, the people want to vote as to whether or not they want their city to be a sanctuary city anymore. And not only do you have people that are really upset and they want to have this vote, you actually have aldermen in the area who are trying to block having that vote. They want to keep the city a sanctuary city, and they are trying to block voters from being able to vote for that. And that was brought up too. You have people say, wasn't it Democrats that talked about voter suppression? And now you're trying to suppress our voices. That's why the people were so mad. 40 million. What? $40 million. $1 million. Ha, ha, ha. Can you really not spell that word? It'll suppress your comment. That's crazy. I'm obviously not going to say that word. Is it going to suppress me on this? Oh, this is hilarious. Hold on, I'll read this to you. I'm just going to read it to you because it's funny. And I might have to get off of here in a second. Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a good way to end it. So, the House has approved an amendment to cut Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg's salary to $1. The amendment, which was introduced by Marjorie Taylor Greene, was brought forward due to Buttigieg's failure to serve the American people. MTG specifically pointed to how Buttigieg staged his fake bike rides. Sorry, my nose itches. Okay. This is what Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted. Pothole Pete staged fake bike rides to the White House and used private planes funded by taxpayers to receive awards for the way certain people have. SEX. The video below is Buttigieg being caught red-handed unloading a bike from an armored SUV before heading to a cabinet meeting to show off for the cameras. So she is talking about the time that Pete Buttigieg had basically like an SUV motorcade drop him off a few blocks away from where his meetings were. And they pulled a bike out of the trunk, and then he got on the bike so he could get a photo op looking like he biked all the way to work when they just dropped him off a few blocks away. But my favorite part about that is Scott Adams replied to this, and I think I fully agree with him. Scott Adams replied to this, and he said, I approve of this because it's funny. And that's the most value I have received from Congress this year. Touche. It is pretty funny. That was pretty funny. What? The shadow bans a ton of stuff, like you can't post the clown emoji next to the world emoji as a shortcut for saying clown world. That's how they are. I didn't know that. Is that true? Oh, here's Mayorkas today.
Situation.
So he's being questioned at a hearing
The situation.
by Senator Hyde. I don't know who she is.
So the situation at the border, you're saying, is not a disaster.
That is correct.
So the situation at the border, you're saying, is not a disaster.
That is correct.
So there.
There you go. I thought I saw an article that said they cut. I don't know if they actually did, but they put an amendment. Oh, someone did it. It's ridiculous. YouTube won't let you name. The Hawk did it. He did the emoji thing. I can see you. You're not banned yet. You know who I want to look at? Let's go to Matt Walsh. I want to see what because Matt Walsh was we were talking about the whole abortion thing in the midterms. I just posted it. I saw it on the comments. It's right here. It's on the comments. I can see your comments. I can see you. Okay, I want to see what Matt Walsh says about. I hope they don't ban my other 15 accounts. Okay, I want to see what Matt Walsh said about the elections and the abortion messaging, because I feel like he feels a little bit differently than I do. Before you tell me the pro-life message is a political loser, answer me this. How many Republican candidates fought back and hard effectively on this issue? Actively went after the left, ran ads attacking their opponent for supporting the dismemberment of fully developed infants, which nearly every Democrat does, and actually countered the left's pro-abortion narrative with a strong and affirmative pro-life narrative. It seems to me that the pro-life message has been blamed in races where pro-life message was never even articulated. Has anyone ran an ad saying, here's what happened the third trimester of abortion? My opponents support this. This is the most basic strategy, and I'm not aware of anyone who has even attempted it. The strategy is simple. Go on the offense and tell the truth. Yeah, I mostly agree with him. I agree with him and Christina Hawkins. Let's start with the language that she used. Limiting late-term abortions, things like that, things that most Americans will get on board with. But I do agree with him that Republicans have really, really failed on this. And he actually is right. In races that really the Republicans never even mentioned it that much, they will still go after it. And the reason for that, that's a great point. That's what I said earlier. The reason for that is this is almost all that Democrats have. This is all they have. They don't have the economy. They don't have energy prices. They don't have public safety. They have nothing else other than this. So if you're a Republican and this isn't even really your platform, they're still going to go after you of this and use it. So you have to learn how to be on the offense. And I do agree, they really haven't been. Good point. 5 years ago, a lot of people on the right assured me that the trans issue is a political loser. We proved them wrong. Now, nearly all of those same people are assuring me that the abortion issue is a political loser. I'm sensing a pattern. Well, I think the way they're doing it right now is a political loser. And I think toying around with a federal ban is a definite political loser. He goes, has anyone ran an ad saying, here's what happened third trimester? I already said that. The idea that conservatives should moderate on abortion is not some brilliant new insight. It's the same thing Republican establishment has been saying my entire life. Just like my entire life, the Republican establishment has been losing pitifully, failing to lead, failing to move the ball, while blaming social conservatives for their own failures every step of the way. A lot of you are falling for the establishment oldest tricks. So someone said pro-life is never going to win. Pro-choice with limits is the only way forward. I think that's the way forward right now. I'm not saying it could never win, but you also have to meet people with where they are. Okay, so another person said, failing to lead. You can't lead a majority of people that are adamantly opposed to the things you're saying. Face the facts. We don't have the votes on this, and pushing it just gives greater power to the things we're fighting against. You know what? I am Christina. No, Christine. Christina or Christine? I forgot. I'm with her on this issue. I think she has a good hold on this issue. Some good advice on that issue. All right, you all. Well, I think I'm going to head off. Thank you very much for joining. That was a fun stream. Well, not the most fun because I don't like talking about losing an abortion. That's not really fun. Ugh. Not fun at all. But I enjoyed time with you all. Thank you very much for joining and watching. I'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. I got on a little bit early today. So it's 2:30. Yeah, I got on about 1:30 today. So I will be on at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I won't be early or late. And I will see you then. Hawk said, how come when a woman wants an abortion, it's not alive, just a few cells, but when we find life on Mars, or when we find a few cells on Mars, it's alive. Yeah, basically. All right, you all. Thank you very much again. I will hopefully see you tomorrow. Have a really good day. Bye.